So, good evening. This evening we will continue with our overview of Nectar of Devotion and discuss chapter 3. Before we start, we glorify the six Goswamis by chanting a verse from the Sat Goswami Astakam, eight verses glorifying the six Goswamis. Nana Chastra Vichayana Kanipuna Sadharma Samstapakam Lokana Mitakarino Tribhuvane Manya Saranya Karam Radha Krishna Padaravinda Bhajana Nandena Matalikam Vande Upasanatana Raghujigo Jiva Gopalako. I offer my respectful obeisance to the six Goswamis, namely Sri Sanatana Goswami, Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Sanatana Goswami, Sri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, Sri Shiva Goswami, and Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, who are very expert in scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures. And all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. They are honored all of the three worlds, and they are worth taking shelter of because they are absorbed in the mood of the gopis. Hare Krishna. So last Monday we discussed chapter 2, the first stages of devotion. This evening, chapter 3 is about eligibility of the candidate for accepting devotional service. Someone comes in contact with devotees, and one attains a bit attraction for Krishna. So if one obtains this little attraction for Krishna in association, especially of pure devotees, that is a great sign of fortune. On last Monday, in the second chapter, we discussed Lord Chaitanya's verse, Brahmanda Brahmade Konya Bhagavan Jiva Gaur Krishna Prasade Bhai Bhakti Lata Beach. After going up and down in this universe, go from one body to another, one becomes Bhagyavan, fortunate, because then by the mercy of Krishna, one comes in contact with a bona fide guru who gives him the seed of devotional service. So that's how devotional service starts. It starts with association with pure devotees. But Chaitanya said this is a sign of great fortune. That this sign of fortune is also described by Lord Krishna to Uddhav in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam. This part of the Bhagavatam is called the Uddhav Gita. There in chapter 20, verse 4, that Lord Krishna says, my dear Uddhav, only by exceptional fortune does someone become attracted to me. And even if one is not completely detached from fruitive activities and not yet completely attached to me in devotional service, by such service will become soon effective. So gradually, one will go from the a third class devotee to a first class devotee. So Rupa Goswami here discusses three classes of devotees. These three classes are also discussed in the Bhagavatam, in the beginning, in the 11th canto. They are also discussed in Nectar of Instruction, but the emphasis is different. The emphasis here is on, in Nectar of Devotion, is on knowledge and on faith, two important elements to make spiritual advancement. And he first describes the Uttam Adhikar, the first class devotee. First class devotee is described in the Bhagavatam by Havir Yogendra, and Havir Yogendra instructs King Nemi, and he instructs King Nemi as follows. These are the characteristics of the first class devotee, also called the Uttam Adhikar, or the pure devotee. Sarva Bhutesya Pashat Bharvam Bhavam Atmana, Bhutani Bharvanatmani Esa Bharvatottama. Shiyava said the most advanced devotees see with everything the soul of all souls, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Consequently, he sees everything in relation to the Supreme Lord and understands that everything that exists is eternally situated within the Lord. In other words, a pure devotee sees Krishna everywhere. He has no material consciousness anymore. For him, being in the spiritual world and the material world is the same thing. It sees only Krishna and does not identify with the body. One does not identify with the body, one becomes aloof from the activities of the body and is not concerned with the happiness and the stress of the body, because he feels a higher spiritual bliss. But now Rupa Goswami is going to mention a list of characteristics which are very important, because these are the characteristics of the most advanced devotee, but also of a spiritual master. It are the characteristics of those devotees from whom we should take shelter. It's a very important principle that who will guide us. In the Nectar of Instruction, text 5, at the end of the purport, Srila Prabhupada said, one should accept an Uttam Adhikar as a spiritual master. One can also accept an Madhyam Adhikar as a spiritual master, but this spiritual master will not be able to guide you perfectly. But the preference is the Uttam Adhikar. So let's go over the characteristics. First, he is expert in study of the revealed scriptures. This is also a characteristic of a bona fide spiritual master. The characteristics of the guru, main characteristics, are mentioned in the Bhagavatam 11.3.21. Tasman Gurut Prabhachita Shiknasu Shreya Uttamam Sapti Parisanishnatam Brahman Upasamasrayam. Therefore, any person who seriously desires real happiness but seek a bona fide spiritual master and take shelter of him by initiation. The qualification of the bona fide guru is that he has realized the conclusions of the scriptures by deliberation and is able to convince others of these conclusions. Such personalities who have taken shelter of the Supreme Godhead, leaving aside all material considerations, should be understood to be a bona fide spiritual master. So the qualification of the bona fide guru is that he has realized the conclusion of the scriptures by liberation. And here Rupa Goswami says he's expert in the study of relevant scriptures and an expert in putting forward arguments in terms of the scriptures. He can present these arguments very nicely. He can very much present the conclusions with perfect discretion and can consider the ways of devotional service in a decisive way. So this gives more details than in this verse, which describes the symptoms or the characteristics of a bona fide guru. He knows the conclusions of the scriptures by deliberation and is able to convince others so by that we can see that the characteristics of a bona fide guru and the characteristic explained here, they are on the same, they are going parallel. So the Uttamadhikari knows that Krishna is the object of worship and love. That he has strictly followed the rules and regulations under the training of a bona fide spiritual master. He has himself going to the process from Kanishta Adhikar, a beginner, Madhyam Adhikar, midway, and then he became Uttam. He knows he has done that under the guidance of a spiritual master. So he has obeyed the spiritual master in accordance with the revealed scriptures. He has been trained to preach and become a spiritual master himself. He never deviates from the principles of higher authority. He attains faith in the scriptures by understanding with all reason, which means arguments and reasons so on the basis of the revealed scriptures. So here he has faith but great knowledge. Knowledge should support our faith. That if we see what's in what in the scriptures, that it's true, we get faith. But for that you need to know the scriptures. If Krishna says to Arjuna, your body changes, that we understand that the body of a Hindu, the body of a Christian, the body of a Muslim, they are all changing. That's the universal principle. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, when you take birth, you must die. We can also verify that's very true. So by that we get faith, because in the scriptures we will learn now nectar of devotion. Nectar of devotion, you have all these 64 items of devotional service. If we practice them, we must get results. When you start to get results, you understand, yes, it works, and you get faith. So faith is a development. And the Uttamadhikari has gone through that. After that, he describes the second class devotee. The second class devotee has been described in the Bhagavatam as Ishvara Tadadineshu Balishetya Trivachusa Prema Maitriki Purmeksa Yat Garoti Samatyamaha. So it sees four categories. It sees Krishna, Ishvara, and for Ishvara, he wants to develop prema, love. And that are the nature, those who are dear to Ishvara, the devotees. For the devotees, Maitri, he wants to develop friendship. And then for the Bali Sheshu, those who are innocent, who are not envious of Krishna, he will Kripa Upeksha, he will give them Kripa, mercy, and preach to them. But then the Dvivatsu, he's avoiding them, the envious. He doesn't give them any mercy. Because they are offenders of Krishna. So this is a second class devotee. Srila Prabhupada says that we should at least come to that second class in this lifetime. The second class position is the position where you attain Nishta liberation. Then in principle you don't take birth again. So that's a high position, Madhyam. But you become a Madhyam by starting to act as a Madhyam. And the actions of a Madhyam are described in this verse. Developing love for Krishna, make friendship with devotees, preach to the innocent, and avoid the atheists. And that's the way how we should learn to act on the second platform. And when you act on the second platform, you will develop the qualities of the Madhyam and come quickly to liberation. And such a Madhyam, one who is midway in devotional service, he has great faith, because he came already from the beginner stage to the mid, and he's midway, so he knows it works. He has faith, but he has faith also because knowledge. The knowledge gives him faith. But his knowledge, although he has very strong faith, his knowledge is not yet perfect. But he has firm faith in the procedure of devotional service. That he may sometimes fail to offer arguments and decisions on the scriptures, on the strength of the field scriptures to defeat an opposing party. He may not be perfect in his knowledge yet, but he has great faith. And then the third class devotee, that is the beginner. So the third class devotee, his faith is not so strong. That is described by Havya Yogendra as follows: Acharyam evaharaye pucham yashadayate nadat bhakti sanyasi sabhakta pagata smitaha. A devotee who faithfully engages in the worship of the deity in the temple, but does not behave properly toward the devotees, the people in general, is called a Prakati Bhakta, a materialistic devotee, and is considered to be in the lowest position. So he knows the deity is called and he prays, but then because he cannot understand who is advanced and not advanced because he has no knowledge. His faith is poor. That if an opposing party has good arguments, then he can convince the neophyte to deviate from the path of devotion. And he cannot discriminate who is the devotee, who is not, and he makes offenses. And that's a problem. So it does not recognize the decisions of the scriptures. And Madhyamadikar, before he does something, he will think, where is that in the scriptures? Where does my spiritual master say that? And based on that, he will act. But the neophyte, he has no knowledge. What's the basis of his action? It's his conditioned state, that's all. So the neophyte's faith can be changed by someone with strong arguments or by an opposite decision. So the neophyte has no firm faith in the objective. He may have faith in the deity, but still he does not realize who the deity is because he doesn't have the knowledge. So that's the beginner. But even lower than that state is, because that state is called the kanista, the beginner. But there are also pre-kanista levels before, really in the beginning when we come to devotional service. And that's described by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. Chatur vidabhajantimam yechana Chatur vidabhajantinam yechana sukritarana artha shikhna suartarti Yanisa Bharatarshava. And translation is on the screen. O best among the Bharats, 4 kinds of pious men begin to render devotional service unto me. 4. The distressed, the desire of wealth, the inquisitive, and he who is searching for knowledge of the absolute truth. So you have the distressed, you have one who is in need of money, whereas the inquisitive, inquisitive wants knowledge. And the wise has realized the greatness of God. These are 4 categories. So, and such beginners, Rupa Goswami says, can also be elevated to the 2nd and 3rd class platform if they associate with pure devotees. So what is example of one who wanted wealth? It's Dhruva Maharaj, who wanted a kingdom greater than his great-grandfather Brahma. And the inquisitive are the sages of Namaisaranya. We hear in the Bhagavatam they are asking so many questions to Suta Goswami. And from there the whole Bhagavatam comes. That the distressed is Gajendra. He had a crocodile at his leg in the water, and he was fighting for so many celestial years, and he became weaker and weaker because the crocodile was in its own element, the water, which is not the natural element of the elephant. But we know Gajendra took shelter of Lord Vishnu, who liberated him from the crocodile and gave him back his heavenly form. And then you have the wise who come to the conclusion that Vasudeva is everything, that they are the jnanis. In Bhagavad Gita, I said the jnanas are very dear to Krishna because they come to the conclusion of pure devotional service. It takes a while sometimes. Paunam Kyananam Te Kyanakam Papachite Vausdeva Vausdeva Sarvamiti Samatma Sadulava. After many lifetimes, they come to the conclusion that Vasudeva is the source of everything. Krishna is the source of everything, and then they come to Bhakti. Therefore, Krishna says this Jnani is very dear to me. But he says there are all magnanimous souls, all these four kinds. That if one of these four kinds, Rupa Goswami says, achieves association of a pure devotee, then they can become pure devotees themselves. And then Rupa Goswami makes the point, without becoming pious, one cannot take up devotional service. Pious means following the scriptures. Because one will not get the determination for devotional service. Pious means going towards the mode of goodness. Passion and ignorance goes to sense gratification. And you don't have the determination for spiritual life. So that's confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 7:28. Yesam tvandratam papam jananam punya karmanam etam tvama nirmukta bhajanti mam dritavataha. Persons who have acted piously in previous life and in this life, and whose sinful actions are completely eradicated, are freed from the knowledge of delusion, and they engage themselves in my service with determination. So you have these four Prekanistha devotees who are taking shelter of Krishna with material motives, the distressed when in need of money, the inquisitive, the wise. So they are classified, these four, as in the sequence I mentioned them here. They are classified according to the gradations of their pious activities. So the least pious, but also pious, is a distress. And then more pious is the one in need of money. More pious is the one that is inquisitive, and the most pious is the wise. That's interesting. Gradations of pious activities. Without pious activities, what happens with the distrust? That, like in Germany during the Second World War, many housewives were praying to God, please bring my husband back, don't let him be killed. But many didn't come back. And all these housewives, they became atheists, rejected God. Or if one is distressed without God, one may become a communist or something like that. So they do not firmly believe in God. But the wise man is different. If he is attached to Krishna and he does not not ask for an exchange of material benefit, then it's most dear to Krishna, because that's practically pure devotional service. We will see later that. So the basic principle of attachment to Krishna is, if one becomes attached to Krishna, it's more or less love, Rupa Goswami says. Due to his wisdom and study of the Shastras, he can understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yes. And we quote this verse again, Bhavanam Jnanamante Jnanama Prapachate Vastev Sarvamiti Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. So it confirms that such a man, such a wise man, after many births and deaths, because he's actually knowledge, he surrenders unto Krishna, knowing that I'm the cause of all causes, Krishna says. And he says, such a soul is very rare. So he knows perfectly that Lord Krishna is the cause of all causes. Therefore, he sticks to the lotus feet of Krishna and gladly develops love for him. But of course, Krishna says, this yes, the wife, that's the most, is most dear to me, but the other three, he says, they are also magnanimous soul. Although they want money, they are in distress, but they came for Krishna for their satisfaction. And therefore, Krishna says, they are also accepted as Mahatmas. Without being elevated to the position of a jnani or wise man, one cannot stick to the principle of worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's this connection here between knowledge and faith. That realize the knowledge must be practiced, and then it turns in realized knowledge. And by that, by experience, the result, one gets more and more faith. So knowledge is important. Those whose intelligence has been taken away by Maya are attracted to different demigods because they are influenced by Maya. But a wise man has understood, I'm a spirit soul, I'm not this body. Why endeavoring to get something from the demigods for this body? Because he realizes, I'm spirit. And Krishna is the supreme spirit. He knows that, I have an intimate relationship with Krishna. And so my relationship with Krishna should be with the soul, not with my body. What are the needs of the body? Eating, sleeping, sense gratification, basically. And the needs of the soul is love and to be loved. Satisfaction, ecstasy, peace. So, because distress and need of money, that's in relationship to the body. The jnani sees things in relationship to the soul, its real self. So the inquisitive may be higher, but it's still the material platform. Relationship with Krishna means knowing that the spirit soul is subordinate and finite, and should always dovetail oneself with the infinite and with the Supreme Soul, Krishna. So the conclusion is here that a person who is freed from the bodily concept of life is ready for pure devotional service. So one who is freed from the body from the body concept of life never asks something for the pleasure of the body and the mind. He only wants to render service to Krishna without asking something in return, out of love. But there are also those, Rupa Goswami says, who are on the platform of Brahman realization and are free from material anxiety, and who can see every living entity on equal level. They are also eligible to enter in devotional service. We see in the Bhagavatam that when Sukadeva Goswami came out of the womb of his mother, he was running to the forest immediately his father Vyasadeva was running after him and calling, my son, but his son disappeared into the forest. Because Sukadeva was liberated from birth. But then Srila Vyasadeva got him back in the ashram by sending out his disciples, reciting verses from the Bhagavatam, from the 10th canto. Tavagatam ritam tapta jivanam kavititam kalmasapadam Sharnamangalam Srimata Tadam Bhurishinanti Deburidakshana. This is a verse from the Gopi Gita. So this kind of verses they were singing, and just by hearing these verses, Sukadeva Goswami became attracted. So he was liberated, and he became attracted by hearing about Krishna. He has no material attraction. That means that there is a higher pleasure after liberation, which is our relationship with Krishna, acting spiritually, and that is bhakti, devotional service. So, and then Rupa Goswami refers back to the previous chapter where he mentioned three kinds of happiness: material happiness for the body, spiritual happiness for those who are liberated, and devotional happiness for those who are on a higher platform of devotional service. So how can we experience this happiness, in this devotional happiness? Experience happiness is due to the execution of devotional service. But that's not possible as long as one is still materially affected. What are the problems to advance in devotional service? It's material enjoyment, and especially the desire to become one with the Supreme. Both are material concept, that wanting material enjoyment or wanting to become one with the Lord. One wants to become God and the ultimate controller. That's quite a material desire. It's not possible, it's an illusion. But impersonalists have that on their agenda because they do not understand the three levels of the Absolute Truth, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. And so they don't understand the Bhagavan feature. That they think the end of knowledge is Brahman for them. So impersonalists cannot appreciate the spiritual happiness of the association and the exchange of loving affairs with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Their ultimate goal is to become one with the Lord, which is not possible because it's mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, the soul is unbreakable, indissoluble, cannot be killed by any of the weapons that Arjuna has in his chariot. It's not possible. And Krishna has said before, not fevam chatun nasham natam nebechanam tipa nashevan abhavishma sarvavayam altaparim. It says, you, all these kings and me have existed in the past, are existing now, and will never cease to exist. So we are eternal. We cannot become one with the Lord. That's an illusion. That idea of becoming, that goal of becoming one with the Lord is an extension of a material idea. In the material world, everyone tries to become number one. Everyone is competing to be greater than all others in the material concept of life. If this idea is extended, then one wants to become one with the Lord. Anyone who has any desire or aspiration for satisfying his senses becoming more and more important, either in the material sense or in the spiritual sense, he cannot relish devotional service. And Srila Rupa Goswami speaks about two witches, bhukti and mukti. Bhukti is material and mukti is spirit, is liberation, spiritual. So the desire for material enjoyment and the desire for liberation. So Rupa Goswami said that that's like being influenced by the black art of a witch. In both cases, whether one has material enjoyment or bhukti or mukti, mukti means I want to become free from all material distress. But a pure devotee never cares for liberation. Like Lord Chaitanya, it takes the form of a pure devotee, of a devotee. And he speaks his Sikshastikam, na danam, na jnanam, na sundarim, kavita vashri shakamari, mamancha mami chamamishvai bhavata bhaktya haidkitai fai. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, no desire for beautiful women, nor do I want any of any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service birth after birth. So a pure devotee is attracted to the Lord's pastimes, to his name, to his qualities, to his forms, so much that he does not care for mukti. That Srila Bilva Mangal Thakur is also called Lila Sukha. He said, if I'm engaged in the devotional service unto you, my dear Lord, then very easily can I perceive your presence everywhere. It says, I see you everywhere, and I feel every moment I feel ecstatic. And as far as liberation is concerned, I think liberation stands at my door with folded hands, wanting to serve me. Because liberation is a state of nistha, and a devotee goes beyond. He gets a higher pleasure. And that is explained in the next chapter. It is very important to understand. What is the result of this pure devotional service, this ecstasy, and how does that compare with liberation? We will discuss that because we want this higher experience, spiritual experience of devotion, which surpasses this devotional happiness, surpasses millions times the experience of just liberation. So a devotee is already, a pure devotee is already far beyond liberation. He does not care for it. That for pure devotees, liberation is not an important thing. And Lord Kapila Dev explains that to his mother, Devahuti, in 3:25-36. So we see Rupa Goswami here. He's backing everything what he says is backing up with scriptural quotes, many quotes from the Bhagavatam. So Lord Kapila to Mother Devotee, 3:25-36. My dear mother, my pure devotees are charmed by seeing my different forms, the beauty of my face, the structure of my body, so enchanting. My laughing, my pastimes, and my glance appears to them so beautiful that their minds always absorbed in thoughts of me, and their lives are dedicated fully unto me. Although such people do not desire any kind of liberation or any kind of material happiness, I still give them a place among my associates in the supreme abode. So Srila Rupa Goswami, after quoting this verse, says, one who is actually attracted by the beauty of the lotus feet of Sri Krishna or his service, and whose heart by such attraction is always full with transcendental bliss, never aspire after the liberation, which is so valuable to impersonalists. Then he quotes from Uddhav in the third canto. In the third canto, we have the meeting of Vidura with Uddhav. Yes, and also Uddhav speaking to Krishna there. That it says, "Oh my dear Lord, for those who are engaged in your transcendental loving service, there is nothing worth obtaining from economic development, sense gratification, or liberation, although happiness from these sources can be very easily had by them. In spite of such facilities, my dear Lord, I do not aspire to achieve any such results. My only prayer is that I may have unflinching faith and devotion in your lotus feet." So you have these four goals, which one finds in the Pravriti Mark, the path of sense enjoyment, or the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas, is Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. And a devotee is not interested in any of these four. Because they are related to the body, gross body, subtle body, but Artha, wealth, Kama, fulfilling of material desires, Moksha, the liberation of distress which one experiences through the body, and religiousness, doing pious activities to get heavenly bodies. That's Dharma according to the Karma Kanda. The devotee has no interest in any of these things. He wants just pure devotional service. And that's a problem for, sometimes we speak about Westerners are coming to our movement, and they come from Christianity or so. It's a whole conversion process. But it's more difficult for Hindus to become pure devotees, because all these Hindus, they have a whole porridge of these ideas of Karma Kanda, and auspicious and inauspicious and so on, and they have to give it up to become pure devotees. They must not only give that up, another part in their conversion process, they must accept only Prabhupada and the Acharyas and the Madhyans as authorities, and must forget about their worship of Durga and all these things, that stop demigod worship. It's a whole conversion progress for them. So it's more difficult to make devotees from Hindus into pure devotees practically. It's more easy for a Westerner. A Westerner has never heard about demigods, the devas. There's no problem with that. So both have to go to a conversion process to come to that standard of Rupa Goswami here, pure devotional service. And also, Kapila Dev is instructing his mother Devahuti in third canto, chapter 25 is about pure devotional service, and text 34. My dear mother, devotees whose hearts are always filled in the service of my lotus feet and who are prepared to do anything for my satisfaction, especially those fortunate devotees who assemble together to understand my qualities, pastimes, and form, and thus glory me congregationally and derive transcendental pleasure therefrom, never desire to become one with me. And what to speak of becoming one with me if they are offered a post like mine in my abode, or opulence like mine, or even personal association with me with similar bodily features, they refuse to accept, because they are satisfied simply by being engaged in devotional service. So that sums everything up. So Krishna says, yes, the devotees, they become attracted by hearing about me, by hearing my pastimes, by conversing about me. They experience great bliss, and therefore they are already feeling that higher happiness, which we will study in the next chapter. And therefore they have no interest in the lower happiness of liberation or material enjoyment, sense gratification, for a body, to please all the organs in your body. No, that's like the animals. They have no interest, Krishna says. Even if you give them liberation, you offer them liberation, or you offer them to go to Vaikuntha, or get a form like me in Vaikuntha, get my personal association. They have no interest. They just want to serve me out of love. So there's the same thing here, and that's the last quote that Rupa Goswami makes in this chapter, and that is Dhruva Maharaj, who expresses here in a prayer to the Supreme Lord the happiness of pure devotees. My dear Lord, the transcendental pleasure derived by meditation upon your lotus feet, which is enjoyed by the pure devotee, cannot be approached by the transcendental pleasure derived by the impersonalist through self-realization. How can the fruitive worker, who at most can aspire for promotion to higher heavenly planets, understand you? And how can they be described as enjoying a happiness similar to the devotee's happiness? Because Dhruva has experienced this. He has developed this love for Krishna, and he experiences this bliss. And he had been touched by the conch of Vishnugarbha, Lord Vishnu. After being touched, he feels this great ecstasy, and Krishna has empowered him to compose these beautiful prayers. And so he expresses in that way that how the happiness in devotional service experienced by pure devotees is much higher than any other, but either material or spiritual happiness. So this is the second chapter of the Nectar of Devotion. So please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Maharaj. Very nice. Maharaj, Hare Krishna. Maharaj, I'm just assessing myself, by listening to these classes of devotees, and how only from that perspective my hearing was constantly evaluating. I'm taking notes and constantly evaluating, how I can improve my devotion and how I can improve from Kanishta to maybe Madhya, maybe if in this life at least, if I can. So, so the only way is like devotional service. That is, but we have to improve on our devotional service, right? So we have to keep on doing something more every day, or say every Ekadashi or every festival. There has to be some path of like stepwise process on how to go from Kanishta to Madhyama. Is there something like that?
Yeah, you see the next slide? At the bottom, you have the seed,
Okay,
and the plant is growing. And the picture is not so clear, but you have first Shraddha, you hear from the devotees, you get faith, and they teach you how to practice devotional service. you accept a guide, a spiritual master who teaches you, then you have Bhajna Kriya, you execute it, and then Anartha Nivritti, your heart becomes purified.
He's coming.
So if you are in Bhajna Kriya, you execute devotional service, and before you come to the purification of the heart, Anartha Nivritti, you're up to the point that your heart is completely purified, you are a Kanishta. So usually that takes many years. I'm not yet on the Madhyam platform, but I may be closer than those who are only practicing for 10 years. I'm practicing 30 years, so I'm coming closer to that. So Kanishta is a broad spectrum. And then after Nishta, it's going quite quick. Nishta is liberation. When you surpass the liberation, you are a Madhyam, and you are on the way to become an Uttam. Uttam is when you achieve Prema. But there are also stages between that we will discuss. After Nishta, what happens? Then you become attracted to Krishna, Ruchi. And then Asakti, you become so attracted to Krishna, like iron is attracted to a magnet. And then you come to the point of always feeling Krishna in your heart. And then gradually the spiritual world is become manifest in your heart. That's transcendental television, Asakti. And then from there you develop a love for Krishna. And the preliminary stage of love is called Bhava. And Bhava, if further nourished and becomes more condensed, it becomes Prema. And then you have different kinds of Prema. That we will learn all these things. But it's good to learn this process and to know how you have to go from one stage to another. And for us, most important to make advancement is to come in that Anartha Nivritti stage when the heart becomes purified. But to come to that stage, we must give up our offenses in service and give up the 10 offenses in chanting. And these are important things to concentrate on. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada wanted in all our temples every morning to recite these 10 offenses. But we will learn about more offenses to be avoided. And because there are many prohibitions in the 64 items we will discuss. And this knowledge will us help in practice to avoid offenses and to become more sincere in our service. So this is a very practical book, this Nectar of Devotion. It's really going to help us here. Does that clarify?
Yes, Maharaj. Again, it's a follow-on question. I hope there is time. So I did go through some of those lists before, not today. I think last year or a year ago. After reading that whole list, I became so afraid that every time I'm doing some offense, that my whole practice I became more bewildered, basically. And I'm talking only from my personal, maybe because I'm pre-Kanishta stage, that at every step I'm making a mistake. What will happen if I make a mistake? That kind of mindset I developed, more of a fear than of devotion. What should I do to overcome that, to have,
Everyone in this world was any tinge of material consciousness, that's everyone, will make errors. And that's okay. but we must try to avoid errors as much as possible. That if we make the errors, because we do it with full intention to make them, Krishna will not forgive. That's a problem. But if it's accidental and we feel bad after that, no problem. Krishna will forgive. So, but first we must know what's offensive behavior and what not. We have to learn that. And just by reading Nectar of Devotion, you will not get so much benefit. You must hear it by someone who explains it with experience. And that will help you to get the point. Therefore, it's not just reading Nectar of Devotion, it's hearing from our bona fide souls and discussing it. And by hearing in that way, you will get a deeper understanding. And that deeper understanding will help us in the practice and avoid these offenses. But offenses will be there, but we should not make them willingly. Accidentally is okay. That's no problem. Everyone makes them. But at the same time, we must be willing to improve. And in the beginning, we make this, but if we become purified, we will naturally act correctly. It will become naturally, spontaneous, we will see. Does that help?
Yes, Maharaj, very much. So I will, this class is very helpful, and this whole Nectar of Devotion, I will be able to hopefully go through it, because I stopped reading the book in the middle when 2 years ago, because I got,
Yeah, we'll go through it in quite detail. That's because every detail is nectar, you will see. Hare Krishna. Someone else, any question?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
The neophyte has no firm faith in the objective. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, no full faith in the objective means like you worship the deity, but you see the deity as a way to fulfill your material desires. But one has no understanding what is really the objective. Like the Kanishta Adhikar, that he sees God in the deity, and he has faith that the deity is God. But he cannot see the same deity in the heart of the devotees. He does not see that. And by that, he makes offenses to the devotees. He does not understand what are the qualities of the devotees. And faith in objective means also, and that's explained today, the purpose is to develop pure devotional service. And the neophyte has no idea what pure devotional service is, because he has no knowledge. So he doesn't know the objective. So he cannot get faith in the objective. But today we are learning really what's the objective of devotional service. It's pure devotional service. Without mukti, bhukti and mukti. And so the objective becomes clear. Krishna wants us to love him without any material desire. And that will attract us to Krishna. And that's the objective. of a pure devotee, just to please Krishna. And the neophyte does not have that objective. His objective is, okay, I give to Krishna, Krishna gives to me. But that's business. Kanishta does business with Krishna because he's not pure. But that purity in action, that must show. That in the beginning, when I came to this movement, I understood theoretically I'm not his body, but I had no idea what was the objective until I got nectar of devotion. And the definition of the verse of Rupa Goswami, Anya Bilasa Sunyam Kyanaka Martanavitam Anukulena Krishna Shilnam Bhakti Uttama. And there Rupa Goswami said, yes, these two witches, you must give them up, and you must do activities to factually please that pleases Krishna. If you don't know what pleases Krishna, how can you, what is your objective, your goal? So that's a problem with the neophyte, that he has faith, yes, the deity is Krishna, but he does not know how to please the deity and what pure love means, pure devotional service. And he's fully haunted by these two witches, Mukti, Bhukti and Mukti. Okay, thank you. Something else? Okay, then next week we will continue with the next chapters. You will see it becomes more and more nectarian. In the beginning it's a little general, but then it becomes more detailed and fascinating details for our practice in devotional service. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you.